Joining me now with reaction is the chairman of the Senate Budget Committee, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. Senator, thank you so much for being here. Your reaction to what you heard from Marco Rubio.
I think Marco's right that Donald Trump's the only guy on the planet that can end this war. Putin fears Trump, and he's been I think he's been tough. Azerbaijan and Armenia has been going on for 30 years. He ended that war. Pakistan, India, just by force of will. So he's the right guy. The only reason Putin's in Alaska, he didn't come to see how Alaska was doing after he bought it. He came to Alaska because Trump threatened to put a 50% tariff on India for buying Russian oil and gas. What's the weakness of Russia? Almost all of their income comes from oil and gas sales. If we went after the customers of Russia and said you had to pick between the American economy and buying cheap Russian oil or gas, they would pick the American economy. So here's what I would say about President Trump. He's the only guy that can do this. And my advice to President Trump and Marco is if you got to convince Putin that if this war doesn't end justly and honorably, with Ukraine making concessions also, we're going to destroy the Russian economy. We have the ability to do it. To Europe, why don't you put tariffs on India for buying Russian oil? To Europe, why don't you threaten China with tariffs for being the largest purchaser of Russian oil? To Europe, you can do more. If Europe and the United States banded together and we told Russia that if this war does not come to an end, we're going to destroy your fossil fuel economy, this war would come to an end. My bill to make Russia state-sponsored terrorism is based on the fact that Russia has kidnapped 19,000 Ukrainian children, taken from Ukrainian families and sent to Russia. They should be a state sponsor of terrorism, Russia, until they return their children. So any peace deal must include the return of the kidnapped children by Russia to Ukraine. If you don't do that, that's not a just end to the war. And if Putin doesn't return these kids, he should be a state sponsor of terrorism designation under U.S. law, and that makes Russia radioactive. So there's plenty of things we can do to end this war. Donald Trump's the best guy to do it. I'm cautiously optimistic we'll get there if we're tough.
I want to ask you about getting tough on these sanctions and what other economic levers the president has. But we're looking right now at the letter that our First Lady, Melania Trump, sent to Vladimir Putin, saying every child shares the same quiet dreams in their heart. They dream of love, possibility, and safety from danger. She is referring to the children that have been taken, as you just mentioned. What do you want to see here? What happened here? Russia went and took Ukrainian children and put them in camps?
Yes. Yes. 19,000 children, according to international organizations, have been taken from Ukrainian families by Putin through force of arms and sent to Russia. Some of them are being trained, 17 and 18-year-old Ukrainian kids being indoctrinated in Russia to fight Ukraine. This is sick. Our marvelous, wonderful First Lady is appealing to Putin's better nature. She cares about these kids. She has been great on this issue. The problem is, Putin could care less about children. He has sent 20,000 young Russians to their death just last month. He could care less about how many Russian soldiers die. He could care less about sanctions because he knows how to invade them. What he does care about is losing his customers. So I just want to let everybody in the world know, I think we have the ability to crush the Russian economy through putting tariffs on people who buy Russian oil and gas, buying cheap oil to prop up his war machine. And I intend to push that until I can't push anymore. I intend to push the return of these children till I can't push anymore. If they do not return these children to Ukraine, the 19,000, then I'm going to push legislation to make Russia a state sponsor of terrorism under U.S. law, which would make Russia radioactive. I want to end this war. I want to end the killing. I'm not out to humiliate Putin, but I'm out to end this war in a way you won't have a third invasion. How do you prevent the third invasion? If America gives security guarantees to Ukraine and continues to provide weapons by selling them to Europe for the benefit of Ukraine, there will be no third invasion. Donald Trump is the only president that can do that, and I think he will provide those security guarantees if we get a comprehensive comprehensive peace deal. When it comes to land, I'm going to leave it up to Ukraine. But here's the reality. You're not going to evict every Russian soldier from Ukraine. That's a reality. There's Russian control and there's Russian ownership. Be very careful about rewarding Putin by giving him title to Ukrainian land through force of arms. That could jeopardize Taiwan. And if you're not thinking about the effect a deal in Russia, Ukraine has on China, Taiwan, you're making a big mistake. So I've got all the confidence in the world in President Trump. To our European allies, up your game. Quit complaining about what we're not doing in America and do more yourself. Put tariffs on every country that buys Russian oil and gas cheaply to benefit Putin's war machine. Do what Trump's doing.
So are you committed then to putting those sanctions on China and on any European nation that continues buying refined oil and gas from Russia, indirectly or directly?
Yep. Yes, ma'am. President Trump has, I have a bill that has 85 co-sponsors that allows President Trump to put tariffs from 0 to 500%. He determines the number on countries that prop up Putin's war machine by buying his oil and gas. Now, that bill gives all the discretion to the president. He has imposed a 50% tariff on India, the second largest purchaser of Russian oil and gas, that will go in effect in 21 days. That's why Putin is in Alaska. That rattled him. And when President Trump said, I will sell weapons to Ukraine through Europe, that rattled Putin. If we will take it to the next level and tell China you're next, then I think we can have an end to this war. The second most important person on the planet to end this war is President Xi in China. If he went to Putin and said, it's time to end this war, I can't help you anymore because you're putting my country at threat, this war would end. So the way to end this war is to make Russia believe that if they don't end it, we're going to destroy their fossil fuel economy. Working with Europe, we can do that if we have the will.
What's your timeline? Do you have any clarity on when you would actually see a timeline of putting these punishing sanctions on the countries you're talking about, including China and including Europe?
My purpose for being on the show today is to let the world know I'm working with President Trump. I'm going to let him determine that. I trust his judgment. I can't think of a better person to be in the room with Putin than President Trump. Okay. To all these media analysts who say this was a bust, that's ridiculous. We have progress we didn't have before. We have momentum for peace. We'll see where it goes. So I'll leave it up to Trump.
Senator, thank you very much. We'll be watching your work.